All right, listen up. This video is all about what I think about art, of course. It's a big, scary world out there, and there's a lot of big, scary pieces of art out there. And by that I mean, art in general is a scary term. It's kind of a highfalutin, pretentious concept. People make, there's like people 100,000 years ago that made a piece of art, and then even to this day, art critics are ranting and raving about it. And it seems like half the time, if you don't know exactly why they're ranting and raving about it, you feel a little bit dumb sometimes, right? Is that okay? Absolutely not. You're allowed to think whatever you want about art, but life is complicated. You've got a lot of stuff going on in your life. So do I. But one of the things I have going on in my life is to tell you what I think about art. And to make it a little bit easier on you, you can just agree with everything I say, and you don't have to worry about it. On the other hand, you can make up your own opinions, but I recommend you just agree with everything I say. All right. Yeah, let's hop right into it. The first piece we're going to look at is this one called The Ambassadors by Hans Holbein the Younger. Not to be confused with his dad, Hans Holbein the Elder, who I guess I don't know why they named him that. Maybe he had the Benjamin Button thing going on. But as you can see here, this is a painting of a couple of dudes who have some sort of medieval gadget garage sale going on. Not surprisingly, art mystics, scholars, enthusiasts will not stop speculating about the meaning of almost everything in this painting. They talk about what the pattern and the color of this drapery back here means, and this quilt and this carpet, and every little object here, and their stance, and the looks in their eyes, and the way they're dressed. You know, this guy has, he's dressed like some rich dude, this guy's dressed like a priest, and maybe what does this instrument mean? And the way this book's open to a certain hymn, and this globe is pointing to a certain. It's okay with me if they speculate about what it means, but if you look it up on Wikipedia, there's a whole section called interpretation, and it just goes on and on and on. What bugs me is some people dogmatically settle on one interpretation, and then other people dogmatically settle on another interpretation, and I feel like neither of them could really be that confident, because really it's just a guy painting some things, and if he's not here to tell us what they mean, we just have to wonder. We do have some cool things going on here, some cool objects. Up here we've got a polyhedral sundial, we've got the quadrant, got the universal equinoctial dial, got the shepherd's dial, got the torquetum, Peter Apian's arithmetic book. I know you all recognize that. And this is a Lutheran psalm book. Got a globe. The only reason I think it might not actually be a garage sale is the fact that there's not price tags on anything. But I will say there is one interesting, cool thing going on here that does pique my interest, which is this smear of a shape going on here at the bottom. Like, what is that, right? What is it? It's very weird. It seems kind of out of place. I'll show you what it is. This is an example of anamorphism. Can you guys tell I've been drinking coffee? I feel like I'm talking fast. Let me grab this camera here. Right, here's the painting. And if you come close and then come down at a sharp angle like this, you'll notice that smear at the bottom turns into a skull. That's right. The smear turns into a skull. It's some sort of optical illusion, which of course is super duper cool. I can't really get a good angle on it because of where this is pointed, but isn't that cool? You can look at it from that side or very sharply from here. You really do have to get close to it. But of course, just another thing in the painting for art scholars to definitively say they know what it means, even though they can just wonder, just like the rest of us. I think it means there was a skull and then a steamroller came by and flattened it. This is a sick coat though, and they do look very bored. Personally, I don't like the painting that much. It's kind of boring. These are cool gadgets, I think I might like it more if they were doing this garage sale out on their terrace and there was maybe a volcano erupting behind them, which they were being very cool and not looking at, and they were just like, look at our stuff. Anyways, whatever. This next one is by, who's this by? Georges Seurat, or French, I'm sorry, I apologize. A Sunday afternoon on the island of Le Grand Jatte is what it's called. And this is a big painting in real life, 10 feet wide, 7 feet tall. It's in the Art Institute of Chicago. You walk up some big stairs at the beginning of the museum. You walk in the beginning of a main gallery. I don't remember which gallery, but it's right there. It's got a big white frame around it. And when I started going there, after seeing it a few times, I started taking pictures. I would come to the side of it and I'd start taking pictures of the people standing there, mouths open, just like looking at it. The people started being more interesting than the painting at some point for some reason. Anyways, this is an example of pointillism. And when he first came up with this, he wasn't copying anyone else. He invented this. I don't know if anyone else did it before him, but he came up with this style. He thought that putting these little points of color would create more vivid hues of color when they go in. Just a second, I gotta get my thoughts together. What's he doing? This guy, he thought that separating the colors out into different points and then splotching them on there together would create more vivid hues when the human eye absorbed them, right? Kind of like a computer monitor, right? RGB. He was onto that. He called it divisionism at the time. He didn't know about pointillism. I guess it evolved later, but he was fairly scientific in his approach. Like, he did lots of preliminary sketches and tests. This took him years, of course, this whole thing. He would go to the park and sit here. I don't know if he really saw all these people doing all these weird things, like this lady with a monkey and this girl with the carrots here. This might actually be a parasol. I don't know. Here's a lady. I don't know if she's fishing or she just has a stick. Here's that one annoying guy at the park that just won't shut up with his trumpet. You're just trying to enjoy a nice Sunday afternoon at the park by the Seine in Paris. And this guy is just tooting away on his trumpet. And come on, guy. He's using some crazy new paints and stuff for this part here. This used to be a much more vibrant yellow. He was using, I think, some kind of yellow paint called zinc chromate yellow or something. But even in his lifetime, this part, the yellow, it started going under some sort of chemical reaction, which no one knew about beforehand because it was a new kind of paint. And the yellow started kind of decaying and turning to brown, which was unfortunate because now it looks a little bit duller and muddier. But that's just how it goes sometimes. I like this painting, but only if I could have the original 7 foot by 10 foot painting in my wall in my house taking up a whole wall. I'm not really interested in prints because, I don't know, it's like all or nothing. You gotta have the big, real thing. This is just, it's an abomination printing out something as huge and luxurious as that. Next we have, speaking of gardens and parks, this painting is called The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. It's pretty famous, pretty crazy painting. I like it. It's hard not to like this, or at least be incredibly intrigued and interested in it. We don't know a whole lot about this guy, Hieronymus Bosch, besides the fact that he has a cool name and he does crazy triptychs. He did a couple other triptychs like this. The idea is that they fold shut, and then on the outside they have a cool painting. This one has a painting of like a planet on the outside, and then you open it up and I guess this is the idea is that this is the inside of the planet. Of course, this painting does not escape from the everlasting scrutiny and interpretations of art scholars and art historians and critics and enthusiasts. They all want to figure out what it means and what the artist was trying to say and stuff like that. They can't just look at it, enjoy it, and say that's interesting, it feels good to my eyes, I enjoy it, I like how it makes me feel. They can never do that for some reason. And personally, that's my favorite thing to do with art, is to see how it makes me feel. But maybe I'm going about it all wrong. Maybe I'm the amateur. Granted, if you wanted to, this painting does include an almost unlimited amount of things to interpret. Look, there's someone sticking flowers in someone else's butthole. Here's a guy hugging a giant strawberry. Here's a four-armed, four-legged owl fruit. Everyone's completely naked, of course. Here's people doing couples yoga on a strange hollow sphere floating in the water. They say this is supposed to be God or Jesus and Adam and Eve over here, up to who knows what. Here's all their animals in the Garden of Eden. This is supposed to be the Garden of Eden, I guess, maybe. This is supposed to be earth, and this is supposed to be hell. That's what some people say. I think it's just a painting with a bunch of people, and it can be whatever I want. Unless I get a signed note from Hieronymus Bosch, it can be whatever I want, okay? If I were you, I would get a high-res scan of this, zoom in on it, and just scroll around. You could spend a whole day just zooming in, scrolling around on this, looking at all the antics of the little naked people. Things do seem to take a turn for the worse over in this panel. Here's a harp made out of a pear or an avocado. Here's the music, and this guy does have some music written on his butt. This guy's pointing and laughing. This weird bird animal with a cauldron for a hat is eating a guy with birds flying out of his butt, and it looks like his bib or skirt or something is flowing down over across everybody. Got a nice little skating rink here, though. Who would have thought hell would have a skating rink? No one really knows much about Hieronymus Bosch's life. They don't even know when he was born, only when he died. And they don't even know when he painted this. One art historian, Ludwig von Baldass, said that he probably painted this early in his art career, but then other people started doing things like dating the wood through various scientific thingamawhatsits, and other people think he painted it years later, and no one really knows. But the point is, no one really knew about this painting until a year after the guy died, and someone put it up somewhere popular where a lot of people could come by and look at it, and it started getting famous. Poor guy. Yeah, so it goes. Anyways, definitely a cool piece. Love it. It's crazy. It's cool. It's obviously different and neat and weird, and lots of other words could be used to describe this one, of course. All right, next we have Olympia by Edouard Manet or something. There's two, there's a Manet and there's a Monet. You don't want to get them confused. This is Edouard Manet, M-A-N-E-T. This is a lady, two ladies, and it's a painting of her. Now, one of the reasons why this is famous is because this lady is painted in a fairly common posture. Usually classical painters seem to paint the nudes in this posture, but they painted like Venuses. I don't know what that means. It's like a goddess or something, right? But back in this time when Manet painted this girl, Olympia, which is the title of this painting, was a common name for a prostitute, and I guess that kind of shocked everybody that he painted a prostitute or something, and that she's looking right at. I don't know. See, the thing is, I feel like a lot of the things, I could go on, and look, I read the Wikipedia. I read the Wikipedia article that explained why this was so controversial and everything. And to be honest, I think a lot of it was lost on me because it was things that were controversial to those people 100 years ago or whatever, and it's not controversial to me anymore. So like, I don't really care. I mean, it's a nice painting. I can tell it's well done. I like these pillows. She looks nice. I don't know. It's not my fault if I am not in the time period when this was so revolutionary and controversial and life-changing and all that, right? It's not my fault. I don't have to like it just because everyone else liked it when it did come out or something. I'm personally going to give this one a pass. even though it is, I'll give it a, like an A plus for execution. It's good, but it's also just a painting of a girl. It's just like, it's very, I'll tell you, this is very famous. I just don't care. These are the type of paintings that art scholars and historians try to guilt you into liking by shoving all this history and info down your throat. But when it really comes down to it, I'm allowed to not like it for whatever reasons I like or don't like or whatever, right? Let's move on. This painting is called the Sistine Madonna, by a guy so famous, we only call him by his first name, Raphael. His full name is like Raphael Sanzio or something, but across the world and throughout history, he just goes by Raphael. That's some level of fame. That's some level of clout right there. I'll know I've made it if one day everyone just refers to me as Peter. That's it. That's all you need. The only Peter that matters. There's probably other Raphaels in the world. They all have to use their last name because they don't want to get confused with this guy. They don't dare get confused with this guy. Anyways, this one's pretty boring too. I feel like there's 1,000,001 of these. A Madonna. It's obviously, Mary holding baby Jesus. I guess that's what's going on here. I feel like this is a very common subject, for religious paintings and stuff like that. Nothing really sets it aside for me. It's obviously well done. Probably my favorite part of this is the clouds. I'm always in love with clouds. I do like clouds. I do like that it's about 8.5 feet tall, so it's pretty big. This guy was working on it for a while, and you might recognize these little cherubs down here at the bottom. These are fairly iconic. I think almost more. I don't recognize any of this stuff up here, but I feel like I recognize these cherubs. I feel like I see them on postcards and all sorts of other cheesy memorabilia, right? Apparently, the story goes he was sitting there painting this and in the chapel or something. I don't know where he was doing this. And little kids would come along and watch him painting, and this is the exact pose the kids were taking while they were watching him. So he just painted them into the bottom there as little cherubs. Cherubim? I don't know. Look at them. They're cute. So pretty much my favorite part of this painting is like, I'll take her feet and down. All this is boring. She's pretty. She is pretty. Can I take like this? Can I take an L shape? I don't know, that's just all. Actually, I do like, all right, the more I look at it, the better it gets. So maybe that's the sign of a good painting and good art. The more you look at it, the better it gets, because I do like all the work that went into the embroidery on this guy's clothes. I do like that. Anyways, good job, Raphael. Well done. It's obviously a solid painting. Kind of boring just because there's so many others like it, I guess, but that's not his fault. Maybe it is his fault, I don't know. Next we have this painting called Saturn Devouring His Son by Francisco Goya. I feel like this is what it looks like when I'm caught midnight, halfway in the fridge, stuffing a treat in my mouth. Someone turns on the kitchen light. That's what happened here. Now, there is some mythological background to this painting. It had been foretold that one of Saturn's sons would take his throne, whatever mythological throne he was sitting on, just like he had taken his father's throne. So, right as each one of his sons were born, he ate them. Now, his wife, obviously, wasn't very happy about this, so by the time the third son, Jupiter, was born, she tricked him by hiding Jupiter away on an island and tricking Saturn with a rock wrapped in cloth. I don't know if Saturn ate that or what, but somehow the trick worked. And later on, as luck would have it, Jupiter did overthrow Saturn, just as the legend foretold. So why try, right? Now this painting was painted on the wall of his house. And this house was called Deaf Man's House or something like that. I don't remember, which is appropriate because he bought it from a deaf man, and also appropriate because at this point Goya was also deaf because he had had a fever earlier in his life, which somehow had left him deaf. I don't know, but he was a little bit miserable, obviously, as you can see, because he painted not only this picture all over the wall of his house, but like 14 other very dark, grim, just kind of abysmal pictures all over the walls of his house. And he never really meant for anyone to see them, but obviously, eventually, I guess after he died at some point, people started seeing them, and somehow they transferred the paintings off the plaster of the wall onto canvas. They have like special ways for taking them off and sanding off the plaster and then gluing them to canvas. I don't know. It's fancy stuff they've been doing for a while. But anyways, he did a lot of these crazy paintings, and this is just one of the most famous ones, I guess. I don't want to say, after looking at these paintings, you might say, wow, this guy was super depressed and down in the dumps. But I don't want to say that. I think he was just coming to terms with death and the disparity of life and stuff like that. Because personally, sometimes I draw things that look a little bit doomy and gloomy when I'm not depressed. And then people say, Peter, wow, you're so depressed. And then it makes me feel depressed when I'm not, because I'm like, wow, maybe I am depressed. Thanks for suggesting that I'm depressed. Kind of like when you walk into a room, you're feeling fine, and then someone says, wow, you look tired, or you look sick, but you were feeling fine, but now you feel worse because someone says you look awful. Anyways, I don't know what I'm saying, but poor guy, he painted some crazy pictures on his walls, and they look nuts. I like this. I like this a lot, mostly some because he painted it on his wall, which is a dream of mine to have a house where I can just paint all over the walls, right? Big dream of mine, and also just because it's so raw and emotional, like he was just going at it. You can tell he was just in it, loving it. I feel bad because he couldn't listen to music while he painted because he was deaf. I don't want to go deaf. I want to be able to listen to music while I paint and draw and stuff, but I like this a lot. Very raw, emotional. I mean, obviously, I don't think he cooked, but... All right. This is The Son of Man by René Magritte, or something like that. I'm not good at saying French names. You'll have to forgive me. This is some people think it's a self-portrait, but what we do know is it's a painting of a person with an apple floating in front of his face. I kind of like it. It's simple, it's weird, and I know, the one thing I don't like about it is that I know that, I don't know why it bugs me so much how much I know that art, that people will just, I don't know, just all the baseless interpretations. They annoy me sometimes. Maybe because I don't know, interpret what you will. Maybe that's the beautiful thing about art. I do like that about art, that it can mean whatever you want, right? I don't know why I let it bug me so much. Maybe it's how confident people are sometimes it bugs me. They don't say, maybe it means this. They say, it means this. Just stick a maybe in front of whatever you say and I'll be fine with it. Anyways, there's a few things here that are fairly common with some of Magritte's paintings, like a guy wearing a bowler hat, and more importantly, this green apple that appear in some of his other paintings. Just one time it was just like a big room full of a green apple, but one time, more importantly, he painted a green apple with the words au revoir on it, which means, I guess, goodbye in French, right? And not a lot of people saw this painting, but an art dealer bought it. And one time he was over in London, this art dealer, and he took it over to this guy's house he knew. This guy was Paul McCartney. And Paul McCartney was just out in the backyard of his house, like filming something, I think maybe playing some music. And the art dealer didn't want to interfere or anything. They were close friends, so the guy just left the painting on the table. That's it, and he left. Later, Paul McCartney came in, and he saw the painting there, and that started something magical. That became the basis for the Beatles' Apple Corps logo, and even later, Apple's computer, the Apple company logo. It went a long way, is all I'm saying. It's Apple, it's It's heavy stuff. This was in like the 1960s when he painted these. This is pretty recent. But overall, I don't like this painting. I don't know why, I just don't like it, so you shouldn't either. It's just boring. I don't know, maybe it's like too symmetrical to me, but maybe, I mean, obviously he made these choices on purpose. The symmetry, the only thing that's different from one side to the other is some of the shading and how this hand is a little bit farther behind than this hand, and how the leaves. Other than the leaves, it's like completely symmetrical. And I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. I recognize its importance without liking it, okay? Next we have this piece called The Sleeping Gypsy by Henri Rousseau, a French painter who was pretty much untrained, aka self-taught, and he didn't ever really start showing his paintings anywhere till he was in his 40s, right? And then he later retired. He even, at some point, he was just like playing violin on street corners to pay the bills. He never really made it really big. He was never really famous and popular during his lifetime, even though at one point, one of his canvases, one of his paintings was being sold on the street, just being sold there as a canvas to be repainted and upon, just as a scrap canvas. And Pablo Picasso was walking by and saw it and was shocked and impressed by the painting and got in touch with the guy and threw a banquet for Henri Rousseau. And all sorts of crazy and impressive, influential, artistic people and art dealers and stuff came, and it was, people spoke incredible things of this banquet for a long time. Anyways, I like this painting for some reason, and I don't like it for others. I don't really like the style of it. Of course, this is something that Henri Rousseau struggled with for most of his life. People not liking the style of it. They thought it was childish and, not very well developed, which is because maybe he didn't go to art school or anything. I do like the blue sky and this gentle gradient right here, which he describes as poetic, right? And I like this coat of many colors here. I like all the different colors squished together here against the contrast of just this gentle blue gradient. The painting I can really take or leave, but what I really enjoy more is the story of his life and some of the things that happened in his life. He had a pretty poor childhood, ended up going to law school, but he ended up committing perjury or something. He joined the army and spent 4 years in the army to escape somehow I guess that escaped the penalties of perjury. I'm not sure how that works. And eventually he became a tax collector. He married his landlord's daughter, had 6 kids, only one of which survived. And I don't know, it's just like a very weird life. And then he eventually, at the age of 42, started putting out all these paintings that a lot of people really hated. And many of his most famous paintings were of jungles and stuff, even though he'd never seen a jungle. He got a lot of inspiration from children's books and the stories of soldiers returning from war and stuff like that. He liked going to greenhouses and botanical gardens. Eventually he got some sort of infection in his leg and ignored it, and then went to the hospital eventually, the same hospital where the one son he had left had earlier died, and then he also died of a blood clot. At his grave, there were only 7 people there, some artist friends, a sculptor, his landlord, and they engraved an epitaph upon his gravestone, which I'm sure something is lost in translation here, but it reads something like this. We salute you, gentle Rousseau. You can hear us. Delaunay, his wife, Monsieur Queval, and myself. Let our luggage pass duty-free through the gates of heaven. They say this because he used to be a kind of tax collector on the borders of Paris. Let our luggage pass duty-free through the gates of heaven. We will bring you brushes, paints, and canvas, that you may spend your sacred leisure in the light and truth of painting, as you once did my portrait facing the stars, lion, and the gypsy. According to the artist, the lion does not eat the sleeping gypsy. All right, next one we have is Water Lilies. Claude Monet not Monet, like we had earlier, was a good painter. Now, sometimes if you're an artist, you might feel like you are painting the same thing over and over again, and it might get a little frustrated. Sometimes you might do a series and paint the same thing, a few times on purpose. I usually get frustrated when I look back at my drawings and I think, wow, all my drawings look the same. How do I branch out? How do I do something different, right? It can be frustrating. Claude Monet liked painting water lilies. He had a house, and he made his own garden with his own pond and everything. He planted the water lilies and everything so he'd have a place to paint them. Guess how many paintings of water lilies he did? He did over 250 paintings of water lilies. I think prolific is the right word to describe him. He liked doing series, like his Haystacks as well, which is a favorite series of mine of his. Anyways, I like this painting, but I'm not entirely sure why or what makes his paintings of water lilies so interesting or so appealing or so delicious. Apart from, what sets this apart from any other smudges and splotches of color? Is it because these smudges and splotches of color bear a resemblance to things that we might have seen in real life, or there's some natural attraction here? I don't know what it is. I can't really put it into words. I don't have I haven't been to art school. I don't have the training. I don't know the terms. I do know that I like it though. I have seen some of his water lilies paintings in person. I didn't know that there were 250 of them when I saw them. I thought I saw. That doesn't make them less valuable to know that there's more of them, but I did think I was seeing one of, I thought maybe like this is all of his water lily paintings, but apparently there's like a million of them. Anyways, this is great. I like it. I'd love to see the real thing. The thing I love about seeing paintings in person is seeing the brush strokes, right? You can imagine the actual brush and his hand holding the brush, smushing the paint on there. You can see it in your mind's eye. You can watch it happen. Oh, it's so delicious. This is beautiful, obviously. This corner up here bothers me a little bit, but I like how much it bothers me. They say he painted a lot of these water lilies while he had cataracts in his eyes, and I don't really know what that does to your vision, but apparently it makes it a little bit worse. But do you think this is maybe what it looks like to look at water lilies with cataracts? It's kind of weird, blurry, messed up. I don't know. Finally today, we're going to look at Christina's World by Andrew Wyeth. Andrew Wyeth is a very popular painter, which I didn't really know of for a while. I was in Jackson, Wyoming. I've talked about this on a previous video of mine at some it's a hoity-toity town with pretentious galleries in it, and they had just some of his half-finished figure, like pencil sketches there, which they were selling for like $120,000. So right after that, I'm like, who is this guy? And then I remembered that this painting, I knew this painting when I saw it, of course, but I didn't realize it was made by Andrew Wyeth, whatever. Anyways, he's incredibly famous and popular, and I felt bad because I looked at this lady's arms and I looked at this lady's hands and I thought, this is a straight up drawing of a zombie. But then I did a little bit more research and I found out that this lady actually has some sort of degenerative muscle disease or something like that. And Andrew Wyeth was actually sitting in his house one day and he saw this lady crawling across the yard. I guess it was his neighbor or something. He actually knew her. And so he painted her there. This house actually exists. It's a museum you can go to now. I think this barn is actually closer and attached to the house. The lady, don't worry, the lady didn't pose like this for the whole painting. His wife posed for a lot of it. But I kind of like this painting. It makes me feel a little bit forlorn and sad. Kind of the same reason I watch sad movies. You just want to feel something. Just want to feel anything. And this painting kind of accomplishes that, right? Definitely evokes some sort of emotion. I like it. The color scheme, it's all kind of muted, and the distances, and there's a reason this guy's famous. And I like it. There's obviously not a lot going on. That's the problem I have with my own drawings, is I pack it in with so much stuff. I think I'm a little bit insecure. I'm like, I've got to put a lot of stuff in my drawings so that everyone has enough stuff to look at. But if, I think this is a good example of less is more. Compare this painting with this painting. They're both good paintings, but for almost opposite reasons, right? No one really cared about this painting when it was first made, and the founding director of MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, bought this for $1,800. Anyways, I like this one. You should too. Anyways, that's all the paintings we have to look at today. I'll put the links to Wikipedia articles for everything one of these paintings down in the description if you want to look at them more. There's interesting stories behind almost each one of these. If you care about that, it's perfectly fine to just look at paintings though, and decide if you like them just from looking at them, even though the history and stories behind them is also interesting and can help you appreciate paintings or dislike them more. What I'm saying is, don't let people guilt you into liking or not liking something, right? It's just art. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to dislike it. You can just do whatever you want with art. It's the most optional thing in the world. All right? All right, thanks for watching, everybody. This has been What I Think About Art, episode 3. Take it easy, everybody. Bye.